Hi Halloweenies, I'm Ozzy the Horror Cub. Take a trip with me to Woodsboro because it's time to review Scream. That's right, today we're going to be talking about 1996's Scream, directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. Premiering in 1996, this movie took the slasher genre and propelled it to the next level. Scream came in and infused the slasher genre. It gave it the extra punch that it needed. This was a meta-horror film that subverted your expectations and knew that you were in a horror movie. It knew the rules of what a horror movie was, and the characters in the film knew what horror movies were too. So this film was unlike anything that we had seen at that present time. From its iconic lines, "What's your favorite scary movie?" to Drew Barrymore's infamous opening death scene, this movie has it all. The film opens with Casey Becker popping some Jiffy Pop popcorn and waiting on her boyfriend Steve. Now Casey Becker is played by Drew Barrymore, and if you know anything about the Scream series, she's the first death in this movie. Now when she was actually brought on, when she signed to be a part of this movie with Wes Craven, she was originally set to play Sidney Prescott. Neve Campbell was not the lead of this film. The lead of this film was going to be Drew Barrymore. She was going to be our Sidney Prescott. It was Drew's idea to actually be the first kill in the movie. It was her idea to subvert the audience's expectations, that she would draw them in with the star power of her name. And now what is this reminding you of? It's very Janet Leigh Psycho and Alfred Hitchcock and how he marketed the movie. Bring your audience in thinking that you've got this huge star, you don't know when they're gonna die, like Janet Leigh in 1960's Psycho, and then there's a first kill, bam! Ghostface eliminates Casey Becker. And basically, how this is done is through this trivia game, because Ghostface starts to call Casey, asking her what her favorite scary movie is. Iconic lines are being said throughout this film. Casey's favorite film is Halloween. Hello, Casey. We love Halloween on this channel too. Michael Myers is our favorite, and we love that he offered you some Michael Myers questions. What slipped Casey up, though, was the question of who's the killer in the original Friday the 13th, to which a lot of people will say Jason Voorhees. A lot of people don't recognize that in the 1980 film, it wasn't Jason. It was his mother, Pamela Voorhees, avenging her son's drowning. Jason didn't come to the sequel, and basically that's what gets Casey killed in this movie. She gets gut like a fish. What I think makes this movie so entertaining is its cast, because it's not only Drew Barrymore and Neve Campbell, you've also got a great supporting cast. You've got Rose McGowan playing Tatum, Sydney's best friend. Sydney is our final girl of this movie. She's being played by Neve Campbell. She is strong and resilient, and you're going to get to see more of her as the film progresses, because she starts the film as shy and a little unsure of herself, and that's because a year prior to the events of this film even happening, her mother, Maureen Prescott, was brutally killed. Now, somebody was sent to jail for the murder of her mother, and it was Cotton Weary, but was Cotton framed for the murder of Sydney's mother, or did he actually do it? Well, Sydney says yes. Okay, so there's some drama that's already gone on in this town in Woodsboro a year prior. What's gonna happen a year later? Well, that's what really kickstarts the event of Scream into motion, and what really takes us on this adventure of having Sydney become a final girl, a very resilient final girl at that. Rounding out the cast, you've got Randy. Randy basically is us. If you are obsessed with horror movies, Randy is your go-to in regards to knowing every little fact about 80s and 90s horror movies. Randy is telling everybody the rules of how to survive a slasher movie. So Randy is essential in this movie. He's played by Jamie Kennedy. There's some great meta moments too, as he's talking to Jamie Lee Curtis as he's watching Halloween at the end at Stu's party, and he's like, "Jamie, look out behind you." Well, Jamie Kennedy, who was playing Randy, was talking to Jamie Lee Curtis, but this also works so well for him. So this is why I love Scream. It's that whole meta angle. A lot of horror movies don't have that meta quality that Scream has. If you are looking for a couple though that kind of mimic this route, I do recommend Behind the Mask, The Rise of Leslie Vernon, as well as The Final Girls. I think you're really going to enjoy those films if you love Scream and you love the meta angle that Wes Craven takes on this film. Also, you're going to love Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I mean, come on. Wes Craven was really building the process of subverting your expectations from that film. Using Kevin Williamson's script basically elevates it to the next level. Now, Kevin Williamson was basically famous from Dawson's Creek, and after he wrote the script for this and it was auctioned off, everybody wanted a piece of him. That's why you had so many Kevin Williamson knockoffs coming out, and I'm not talking about I Know What You Did Last Summer, because Kevin Williamson actually wrote that. A lot of people don't even know that. They just assume that it was one of the many knockoffs of Kevin Williamson, because after Scream revitalized the slasher genre, because it was on its last legs. I mean, Freddy had worn its course and so did Jason, and so did Michael Myers. I mean, The Curse of Michael Myers had come out a year previously, and it had just proved that box office numbers were dwindling, that people had seen enough of these characters, nothing was really happening to change up the slasher genre, and then bam, here comes Ghostface, here comes Scream, here comes Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson reinventing the slasher genre, reigniting it with this meta blend of horror comedy, how they build the story in this murder mystery, and it's very suspenseful, and you have to try and figure out who the killer is. There's a ton of red herrings in this movie. Now, Skeet Ulrich is one of the main killers, and spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Scream from 1996 already, I mean, come on, why are you here on this channel? But Skeet Ulrich plays Billy Loomis, and he's basically a homage to Johnny Depp's character in 1984's A Nightmare on Elm Street. Looks identical. The casting was dead on. I mean, Wes Craven directed A Nightmare on Elm Street in 1984, and now he's directed 1996's Scream, so there's that iconic resemblance between him and Johnny Depp. But he plays the killer in this movie, Billy Loomis. He's set up to be the boyfriend of Sidney Prescott. Now, he really wants to get hot and heavy with Sidney at the beginning of this movie, but she's pushing for a PG-13 rating on this relationship. They used to be hot and heavy, but after Maureen's death, things have really cooled down. Now, that's where the motive comes into play with Billy later on in this film. Rounding out the cast, you've got Matthew Lillard, who's playing Stu. He's the accomplice to the Ghostface killer of Billy. Why did he do it? Peer pressure. We love Billy and Stu. Matthew Lillard is basically the heart and soul of this movie. His comedy, as well as his one-liners, basically make this film. If you're gonna watch Scream, watch it for Matthew Lillard alone. Just the way that he acts. Hit you with the phone! There's just so many great moments that he delivers throughout this film, and if you're gonna watch Scream, watch it for Matthew Lillard alone, because he kills this movie. Of course, we can't forget about Gayle Weathers. Gayle Weathers is my favorite character in this entire film. She is just so iconic. She's a reporter that wrote a book on Sidney's mother's death a year previously, and now she's basically here to figure out who's the killer in this new Woodsboro massacre, and is this connected to Sidney's mother, and could Cotton Weary be set free? She's basically a high-strung reporter who's in it for herself. She wants to get this story, she's cutthroat, she doesn't care who it hurts to get this story, or who she has to go through to get it. I mean, she'll even take out Kenny, her cameraman. Kenny, move your ass. Now, this is a whodunit. We're all trying to figure out who killed Casey Becker and her boyfriend Steve. This is all playing out with the Woodsboro police coming to the high school the next day, and they're interrogating all the students. And this is where we get to meet Dewey. Now, Dewey is the brother of Tatum, and he's played by David Arquette. Now, you'll get the three leads in this movie that are going to carry on the franchise moving forward. David Arquette, Courtney Cox, and Neve Campbell. These are the three that carry on the franchise moving forward, though, from the first film. What I think this film does so well, though, is it gives you the red herring plot of, you know, it could be anyone in this town, because as you even get to meet the sheriff, you get to see his boots. Well, his boots resemble the killer. Well, why did Wes Craven show you his boots if they weren't setting up the sheriff to be the killer? Or why are they doing so many red herrings towards Sidney's father? And that's always to throw you off the scent of Skeet Ulrich, Billy Loomis, being the main killer of this film. The dialogue is so witty, it's so quippy and clever, and if you love horror movies, you're gonna understand every little meta nod that they have towards every single film, whether that be Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. This film is a love letter to the slasher genre and to fans of the slasher genre. Now, the killer in this movie is wearing the iconic Ghostface costume, and what I love about this costume, it's simplicity at its best. It's basically like the Michael Myers costume. It's a white mask, and you can emulate anything into that. Basically, you put your projection of whatever you fear inside that character. Now, Ghostface does make an attempt to take out Sidney Prescott, our final girl of this story, and this is where we get to meet Sid, and we really get to find out her history. Sidney is not into horror movies, and she even tells the killer that the second the killer calls her, because he even says, you know, what's your favorite scary movie? And she's like, I don't watch any of that because it's all so predictable. In it, the woman should be opening up the front door and running out, yet she's running up the stairs. It's insulting. And yet, what's the first thing that happens when Ghostface attacks her? She can't run out the front door. She can't get the door unlocked in time. Her anxiety is just going so fast, and her adrenaline is just pumping too hard that she's forced to run up the stairs to avoid Ghostface. So she's even proving that in that scenario of us watching the screen saying, you know, don't go up there or run out the front door. Sometimes when you're forced to be in those situations, you can't really predict what you're going to do or how you're going to behave, and she herself couldn't unlock the front door to escape Ghostface at the time. But she's extremely clever in eluding these killers, and that's what takes us to the final act of this movie. Everything goes down at Stu Macher's house. This is a bloodbath to end all bloodbaths. Now, I even heard that the special effects team actually had to use 50 gallons of fake blood, and you can really tell in the ending of this movie that that blood was used. Whether it be for Kenny, the cameraman's throat slash, or whether that just be for all the characters that are just covered in blood at the very end of this film. Randy, Sidney, everyone is just filthy covered in blood, and it's great. It's amazing. The final act of this film will blow your brain when the killers reveal their intentions intention and who they really are and what their motive is in regards to taking out Sydney and all of her friends. There are some great kills that happen at this final act party. I mean, first you've got Tatum's death. Tatum is trying to avoid the killer. She doesn't actually think that it is Ghostface, that this is all a prank, and she gets killed by the garage door. Tatum's death is one to remember. I mean, her getting stuck in the garage door, that's an epic kill. Of course, the killers reveal their motive. It is Billy Loomis and Stu working together. Stu's doing this out of pure pressure, although I really do think that he's just in love with Billy Loomis at this point. Billy's doing this whole thing because he framed Cotton Weary a year ago. He's blaming everything on Sydney and her mother for the fact that Sydney's mother was having an affair with Billy's father, Mr. Loomis, and that's what caused Mrs. Loomis to leave. So Billy's mom left town years prior because Maureen was having an affair with Billy's dad. This would then trigger the events of Scream 2 into the motion, in which Mrs. Loomis would come back looking for revenge against Sydney. It's always going back to the sins of the mother though, in regards to Mrs. Prescott, Sydney's mother. But Sydney is clever, resourceful, and she's able to take out the two Ghostface killers. That is, until the sequel. This movie, whether it be from start to finish, is going to engage you, and it's going to keep you engaged if you love horror movies, love suspense, love a good murder mystery. The acting is dead on, the music is phenomenal. This movie was directed by Wes Craven, and he's a horror movie master. I mean, look at his work. You've got The Hills Have Eyes, you've got The Last House on the Left, Nightmare on Elm Street. This was a man that understood horror and how to subvert your expectations and to progress something to the next level. You have Kevin Williamson, who had that quippy dialogue, and everybody wanted Kevin Williamson after this. I mean, even Halloween was looking at him with Halloween H2O to write a treatment for that script. It's that Dawson's Creek vibe that was just so big in the 90s. This movie really did revitalize the slasher genre. It took everything that Halloween 1978 ran with, from Psycho and Black Christmas, and because Halloween really did cement the slasher genre in regards to what the rules were, and what Scream did was it subverted your expectations in regards to what those rules would be for a new generation. And that's what Scream did. It rebirthed the slasher genre for a new generation, because after this film, you had a slew of imitators, whether that be Urban Legend, Valentine, or even Halloween H2O, giving off that same kind of teen vibe, teen horror. Scream really did revitalize the slasher genre and changed everything on its head, and I think it's going to do that with the new Scream that's coming out in 2022 in January, and I'm so excited to see it. Scream is hands down one of my favorite horror movies. I would have to rate this movie a 10 out of 10. This is an instant rewatchable classic, down from Casey Becker turning on the Jiffy Pop. You have to just pop some popcorn, watch this film. I can watch it on repeat over and over again. This is such a great comfort horror movie. I know that sounds really weird, but if you love a good comfort horror movie, this would probably be it. This movie just has everything. What do you guys think of 1996's Scream? Do you love this slasher movie? To me, this is one of the ultimate slashers. It's part of my top 3. I've got Halloween, Scream, and Nightmare on Elm Street. These are my favorite films. They're just amazing in the slasher genre. They're amazing in what they offer in terms of the meta aspect of horror. Wes Craven is a great director. What did you guys think of Scream? I need to know. Do you love Sidney Prescott as a final girl? Do you love the supporting cast and characters from Rose McGowan to Skeet Ulrich? Let me know your thoughts on Scream down below. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about Scream. Well, Halloweenies, that's all the time that we have left for today, but smash that subscribe notification bell to be notified about all of our upcoming videos, and don't forget to hit that like button. Until next time, stay spooky.